Welcome to Livzenastrology, the channel for updates and reflections, where we are grounded in the stars and elevated by consciousness. Thank you for tuning in.
Hey guys, I just wanted to pop on here and share some energy as I was reflecting upon my own adventures this early morning, as I was feeling all my feels in the Scorpio season, and just, channeling in some of the currents that we may all be experiencing and seeing if you can connect or identify to any of these concepts or these intensities, because Mercury, the sign of the planet that rules our mental realm, our communication, is spending its last day in Scorpio today. And later on, depending on your time zone, it's going to be traveling into Sagittarius. So it's at its anaretic degree, which is 29 degrees. And that's its last hurrah in Scorpio. So everything that you've been processing during this time while Mercury's been in Scorpio is at its last point today. So it's its most potent process, with Mercury getting very, very intense with what? Our energy, our emotions, our deep unconscious, our power, right? Because Scorpio rules sex, death, and taxes, other people's money, merging with the other, our relationship to our own selves, our sexual nature, the underworld, right? So it's really about meeting your own shadow and deciding whether you're going to befriend your shadow or keep being an enemy to your own shadow, because it's going to be there with you no matter what. These aspects of self that perhaps live in the underworld of your consciousness, the parts of us that we don't really like to look at, the excrement, the discharged parts of us, the parts that were once we consumed and now we had to release. And so some of us are uncomfortable looking at those aspects, right? Those darker versions, the parts of us that maybe are jealous or envious or angry or have these really intense, negative, inverted dynamics within us. Well, guess what? In order to experience the love, the bliss, the light, the joy, the connection, you also have to realize in this realm where we are right now, there's also the aspect that is disconnected, that is unjoyful, that is angry, that's pissed off, that's wanting to destroy, right? So we have creation energy and we have destruction energy. And you can't have one without the other. That's the whole point of what Mercury was showing me in Scorpio. And so that was one aspect that was coming in that I was like, wow, okay, own it. Own these dark parts of yourself. Because, Livzen comes from the channel, from the perspective that all is self. So I'm going to tell you a story about what I got to witness, which even led me down this rabbit hole of self-discovery, especially with Scorpio speaking its last hurrah before it goes into Sagittarius. So early this AM, I've been staying with friends, a friend and her son. And her son is an avid Lego builder. He loves Legos. He's obsessed, right? Scorpio's obsession. He's obsessed with Legos. He's obsessed with the creation of Legos, playing with it. He's got tons of builds in his room. And upon rising, he had just gotten this new set, and he was really excited to show it to me. And he was showing me all the intricacies of it, right? It's actually a black ship. So, I thanked him. I said, cool, I gave him some attention. And then I went and started doing my self-care practice, right? So I started with my lemon water. I went and started doing some yoga. And he was in the kitchen while I had, my flute music playing and doing my yoga poses. And then all of a sudden in the kitchen, I heard this crash, this boom, right? And I knew what was happening. I knew that he, in his excitement about the build, had started filming, because he started a YouTube channel, right, on Lego building. So he was in the middle of filming, and then all of a sudden there's this crash. So there goes the Legos, right? And I could feel energetically like, uh-oh. I knew what happened, but I heard, just stay where you're at. Just stay in your own lane. Just be witness to what maybe somebody else might be experiencing, right? So a destruction just happened. How are you going to process it? So I got to hold witness for him having, a bit of a meltdown. Of course, he was upset. He had spent the last 5 hours of his life building this set, right? He had even claimed how his back was hurting. And so he had put a lot of time and effort and energy into this build only to see it destroyed so quickly after the construction. So this was an opportunity for me on a couple of different levels, right? So hold witness to my friend going through this, to a 12-year-old, that's traumatic. And of course it's upsetting. But I had an opportunity to decide how I was going to respond. And, of course, being a mother, my instinct was to let me go comfort this being, right? Let me go, oh, are you okay? I'm so sorry, but because I was in my own practice and I was listening, I was in my body, I was very present with the energy. I heard very clearly, just be in observer mode. Just keep doing you, keep in your own lane, if you will, and just observe the energy in the other. So this sort of meltdown process happened for 15, 20 minutes, not too long. And then I was able to, finish up my yoga practice and get up and go check on him shortly after. And his mom, helped him work through the process, the yelling, the screaming, the upset, right? And then there were so many things I was holding witness to because, again, I come from the point of view that all is self, that everything that's happening outside of me is a part of me. So because I was in my practice, I was able to really settle my nervous system and really see without being triggered, wow, this is like an inner child moment. And a reflection of how, as an inner child, when things used to be disappointing or something like that would happen, I wasn't given space or time to process it, right? I was told to shut up, don't cry, don't worry about what just happened, get over it type of energy. And so what I was able to witness was actually compassion from his mom, compassion for myself, and time and space for him to work it out, right? Without judgment, without me having to input my opinion on what he should be feeling. And so this was a great reflection too of like, if you find disappointment, if things that you just created got destroyed and they had to, for whatever reason, because it's a Scorpio season, it's about the life, it's the birth, life, and death cycle. And it's about, having something having to die to be recreated. And sometimes that happens quickly, whether it's in a build of a Lego set or it's a relationship or it's a job. Wherever this death process is showing up, you need time and space to mourn it. You need time and space to feel it. And because Chiron's in Aries right now, we may have never been given time and space to feel it. These are part of the wounds of the child. Part of the wounds of Aries is not being given the tools to process. How do you handle disappointment? How do you handle when things have to leave your life, right? And so a lot of us were told to just shut up. We're told, handle it. Don't be a baby. This is stupid anyway. It's just a toy. Who cares? But to the eyes of the child, to that inner child, that was a big deal. That took time and energy and space to create that. And when it's destroyed, you have to feel it. You have to feel the loss of it. And so this is an invitation, as I was able to help process the energy within myself and my own inner child, to go back in time and space to go, wow, where was I not given time to honor, to learn to mourn, to learn to feel disappointed, to yell and scream, and to have these sort of meltdown experiences and be okay with it, to allow myself to feel that, or not being allowed to feel it because of maybe my caregivers. They didn't know how to feel their stuff, right? So they just were passed on to me what they were taught, which was be strong, don't feel it, get over it, minimalize whatever the intense emotion was at the time. And so this is also Chiron in Aries, is being able to feel what you're feeling, go back to the heart of the child, go back to your inner self when you were a child. And if there's still wounds there, or maybe not being able to give it the tools on how to process when you feel grief or when you feel anger, you feel frustration, this is the time to ask for help, to go out there to get either, go through counseling, go to a mentor, go to a spiritual retreat, learn these tools, because right now, as a collective, there's aspects of us that are dying. These parts of us, these wounds, we need to learn how to compost them, right? The shit of our lives, the unprocessed guilt and trauma that is that's coming up to be seen right now for all of us as a collective, because that's what Scorpio season is about. It's about looking at the underworld. It's looking at it's looking at our shit, but learning how to compost it, right? Not just throwing it away or just, passing it off or just leaving it out in the open, unresolved, because that's what's going to create imbalance. That's what's going to create parasites and it's going to cause imbalances in our immune system, because it's unprocessed shit that we don't know what to do with. Well, now is the time to learn to compost. How can you take that trauma? How can you alchemize it into energy that you can use, that can be regenerative, can actually go back into yourself and regenerate, realchemize, reform parts of your consciousness, parts of your body? And so this is an invitation from Scorpio right now to learn alchemy, to compost your shit. And because once you can do that, that's what's going to clean everything up, because that compost now is going to create fermentation, which is going to create new life, new cellular structure, a new biome within you, right? It's a regeneration process. So this is an invitation right now for all of us to learn how to alchemize our shit and to process grief and to mourn those aspects to yourself that are dying. Another part of the reflection I was feeling yesterday is I allowed myself to consume with content on YouTube and listening to certain YouTubers and podcasters, and synchronistically I kept seeing the image of the phoenix. And even though I'm going through a part of my life where I'm no longer having my cycle, I remember what going through the change, or women talk about how when you're going through menopause, that there's heat, you can get like hot flashes. So I know the difference between hot flashes when your body's going through hormonal changes, but then I was feeling a lot of heat yesterday and even parts of today. It was different than the hormonal, and it was probably hormones, but I was identifying it with that phoenix energy of things are being burned away, right? So think of like the death process, and because that's guaranteed, that's something that all of us have in common. Actually, those are the two things that every single human being on this planet has in common, is that we're all born and we're all going to die. That's the way it is. So in the death process, some of us are going to be buried, some of us are going to be cremated. And so I was realizing, especially since we're getting ready to have a new moon in Scorpio, and I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart, and for those, everybody has Scorpio somewhere in their charts, right? So everybody is going through this process, but some of us may be feeling it more intensely because we have these configurations natally. I was recognizing that, oh wow, I'm basically burning right now. These last couple of days, I've been feeling a burning sensation, just like hot. I'm really, really hot. I got to go to take a bath. I got to drink lots of water, and then I got to cool down, and then I'm cold, and I'm going through this whole cycle, right? And I'm realizing that it's the phoenix within me who's rising up, and it's burning away it's destructing, it's destroying all these parts of my ego and my aspects that have to die off, like the leaf that's falling off the tree. It has to die off for a new regeneration to occur, for a new regenerative, another being is being born within me. I am being reborn. So I have to die. There's parts of me that have to die, but not in the physical. And this is something that I wanted to point to, because a lot of us also, especially with Scorpio season and now with Saturn in Pisces, Saturn is structure, and Pisces is illusion, and it's also fear. So this is a part of us also that might have to die off. An aspect, a thought form, old traumas are dying. And we don't have to die in the physical to die. And this is something that we have to recognize, is that I know some of us are feeling like we're at our wits' end, that we just don't want to do it anymore, that this life is tough, that there's so many imbalances and so many traumas around us, and we're seeing death and destruction on so many levels and in so many cultures and parts of the world. But this is part of the natural process of death, and we don't have to die in the physical for us to experience these death processes, right? So what was coming in really strong as I decided to come to a park and continue my alchemy, because nature is such medicine for me. So I was dosing myself in nature by taking my shoes off and grounding and allowing myself those parts of me that are disintegrating, that are alchemizing the shit of my life that I could see reflected in the others as people are falling apart, as they're going through their death and destruction process. That this is a time to create some form of ritual. Now I understand why we created funerals, right? The funeral procession, because we need some form of ritual to say goodbye, to just let our minds and our hearts know that this aspect of, if it's another, especially if you're going to somebody else's physical funeral, right? To share your grief, to say your goodbyes, give it a space to go. And so this is an invitation, and I'm going to do this weekend, is I'm actually going to symbolically go to my own funeral. I'm going to write my own obituary, and I'm going to see, I'm going to welcome those parts of me and recognize that had to go, those parts of my ego, those parts of my old thought systems, those old patterns of being in the world, old fears that are ready, that's already decomposed and decomposing now. I'm going to be actually composting, and and this is part of the ritual of the funeral process and of honoring death. So this is an invitation that just kind of came to me, and again, I'm always about ritualizing, especially important chapters, important turning points that are happening. And with Mercury still in Scorpio, this is sort of the culmination. This is the most potent aspect of thoughts that I can be thinking. Is like, wow, I can die 1,000 deaths and still be alive. I can, and it never stops. There's going to be other aspects of me that are going to continue to die, that are going to continue to be reborn while in this vessel. So this is an invitation, perhaps, to, go symbolically to your own funeral. What would that look like? What aspect of you is dying, is dead, and that has to be buried, that has to be burned away, so that a new aspect, a new version of you can emerge, a new reborn, rebirthing yourself, like the phoenix coming out of the ashes, rising again. This is why the symbol of the phoenix is associated with Scorpio. And if you study Scorpio, Scorpio has many incarnations because it's all about regeneration. Starting off with the gray lizard, then going to the snake, then the scorpion, then the eagle, then the phoenix, right? These are all aspects, and it's one of the few astrological signs that has many embodiments because of that, because it's constantly regenerating. It's constantly dying and being reborn. But again, you don't have to die in the physical. You can regenerate yourselves. You can allow aspects of yourselves to be composted. And then when that compost is, now we're going in, because I'm in the northern hemisphere here in the United States, we're getting ready to come into our winter months, right? So where literally things are going to be dying so they can go back to the soil to be rebirthed again in the springtime come March, which is really the beginning of the new year. It's not January. That's old Gregorian calendar codes. It's old timing codes that's been off with nature. So if you're following the cycles of nature, the regeneration process, the new birth period will be happening in March. And then in April, there's going to be lots of planets changing signs. We're going to have this major eclipse that's happening in April. It's going over Texas, where I'm at now. So there's a lot going on that's coming up in 2024. But we have to do the work now to set the foundation of the new birth process, of the new beings that we are becoming, by allowing the phoenix within us, all of us, because again, we all have Scorpio in our chart, to burn away, to allow this death process to happen with grace and ease, right? Like the Lego pieces that just fell all over the place. Allow your inner child to cry, mourn those aspects of yourself. That's a deep part of the process too, which a lot of us weren't taught or allowed to grieve or to express emotion. And so go back and do the inner work to allow that inner child to feel it. And then by feeling it, we can heal it. And of course, Scorpio is all about the healer, right? And we're ready to go into a 13 constellation, which astrologists don't like to talk about, which is Ophiuchus, and I'll talk about that later on in another speak about the 13 sign, because that's happening at the end of November, where there's a small window where we can actually become our own healers, we can become our own doctors, and we can alchemize through the pain. And so I'm check out Livzenastrology, because there's going to be more conversations about that, because I don't really hear a lot of astrologers or metaphysicians talking about this aspect because it's deeply hidden. But now is the time for it to be seen, to emerge, to show itself on how to self-heal, how to regenerate. And yeah, there's lots coming along. There's lots coming on in the planet and online with how to do this. But you've got to make space for it. You've got to create this change within so that you can see a new version of yourself without. So, yeah, if you wanted to go and go to your own funeral this weekend. I know that's intense and sort of strange maybe to some people, but now is the time for strange. This world is strange. And so if it makes you feel better, if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad, to quote Cheryl Crow. I was listening to her too. So anyway, these are just some of the reflections that I was experiencing. And I wanted to share that if you are feeling these deep wounds to come up, really intense emotions, things in your life are falling away, you're not the only one. A lot of us are going through this. This world is not meant to be lived alone. So please reach out to a friend or family member and ask to be held. Ask from your inner child's perspective to be held in a certain way. If you need to feel it, it's okay to feel it. It's more than okay. It's actually necessary, because that's part of the divine alchemy as well. And then go and bury it, symbolically, take it, alchemize it, compost it, because there's going to be regeneration happening. It always does. It always will. It always has been. We are just now remembering the cycles and the frequencies and relearning how to do this. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for connecting. I love you guys. And if you found any value in this, please hit like, subscribe, check out more of the content of this channel, share it. Because again, we're not meant to do this alone. If this gives you any comfort on that you're not alone by feeling these intense emotions, that there are ways to process it. You're not the only one. And let's continue to tap in and tune in and create these sharings, because we are meant to do this with another. We are pack animals. We are meant to do this together in community. So this is my offering to you, and I love you guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for connecting. Blessings.